What's up, guys, and welcome to my top 10 least favorite films of 2015. These films were very difficult for me to get through, so, going through this list, I'll try to express my hatred as much as I possibly can. But, now there are a few honorable mentions. Now, this year was not filled with bad movies, but out of the ones that I did see, which I didn't see everything this year, but out of the films that I did see, I do have the top 10 worst, and then I have 3 honorable mentions, which are Poltergeist, Terminator Genesis, and Vacation. These movies to me are bad, and if you've seen my reviews for these films, you know that I didn't care for these movies at all, really, but they didn't make the list. There's 10 films that are worse than these. So, kicking off the list, my 10th least favorite film of 2015 is... I actually didn't even do a review for this film because it was supposed to come out in theaters, but then they didn't put it in my theater, and they didn't put it in any theater local to me, anywhere around here. So I waited until just recently it was put on the PlayStation Network and a digital download, and that is Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension. I am actually happy that I didn't have to see this movie in the theater. I saved a few bucks on it because it's not good. I mean, these Paranormal Activity movies these days are just they're really silly and they're stupid. And this is supposedly the last one. I hope they don't make any more of these. But I can say this: out of the last 3 Paranormal Activities, 4, the marked ones, and the Ghost Dimension, this is the best of the last 3, which is why it's at number 10 on my list. But it's not as bad as these other 9 films coming up. At number 9, we have a film that came out, I think, in January. Maybe it came out in February. I'm not entirely sure. It was at the beginning of the year. And I was kind of excited for it, but after leaving the theater, I just couldn't wait to just get this movie out of my mind because it was just such a disappointment. And that is Jupiter Ascending. This movie, it was like marketed to be this big epic thing. And you go see the movie, and it's just this really silly story with a lot of CGI, which some of it just looks really bad. And just the story itself is kind of weak. The acting was just all over the place. I wasn't a big fan of Jupiter Ascending, so that's why it's number 9. This was actually the first film I saw this year, and it kicked off the year in not a very good way. And I don't know if you guys remember my review for this or if you've seen my review for this, but my 8th least favorite film of 2015 is The Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death. This movie made me feel like the Angel of Death, to be honest with you. It was just so dark. The cinematography, although some of the camera angles were fine, it was just so dark, and it kind of strained your eyes a bit because you have to keep squinting to see what's happening. And then all of a sudden, you get taken outside, and it's brighter, and it's just like, oh, I'm going to be blinded now. I mean, that's just one of the bad things about this movie. I really enjoyed the Daniel Radcliffe movie, the first Woman in Black, but this one, it was silly. Just the way it ends, it was really bad, and I didn't care for this movie at all. Now, this might come to a shock to some of you, but my 7th least favorite film of 2015 is 50 Shades of Grey. I know, guys, I'm not even kidding. 50 Shades of Grey is number 7, because, it's a bad movie, and it's a cringeworthy film, and it's just, there's really nothing to it. The story sucks, and the acting sucks, and the screenplay sucks, and everything sucks about it, but it's not a film that if I had to see, bits and pieces of on the television, I could say, oh, I don't want to watch this anymore. This is that bad. Which it is, but it's not a cringeworthy experience for me. I mean, I did see this movie by myself when it came out in February, and it was just an awkward experience. But when you're watching it by yourself, it sounds kind of creepy, but it's not as difficult, I guess, right? Yeah, I'll go with that. Okay. Coming in number 6, we have Pan. It was horse crap. The CGI in this movie is horrible. The visual effects, I don't know how they greenlit this movie. The effects sucked. The writing sucked. The plot was just all over the place. It starts out, in an orphanage, and then he just gets taken away, and there's really no explanation for any of it. It was just kind of silly and kind of stupid. And I didn't like Pan and how they throw the pop songs in there that, like, Hugh Jackman is singing and his makeup and everything. It was just, this was a silly movie. It was a stupid movie, and I really hated it. Like, Pan sucked. At number 5, we have a film that maybe not many of you have seen, but I saw it, and it was just so boring. This movie almost put me to sleep, and that is Little Boy. If you guys don't know what that is, that's totally okay. You don't have to look into it because it's not worth it. This movie is boring, and it's like they set up the relationship between this boy and his father, but then the movie just turns into something else, and he gets all these powers almost. It was just... I didn't know what I was watching. I thought the tone was all over the place. At points it was for adults, at points if it was for children. It was a slow, boring movie. I'm never going to see this movie again. I hated it, and that's why it's number 5. At number 4, we have a film that I did see recently, which I really, honestly hated the experience watching this movie. It was definitely a cringeworthy experience. I ended up punching my knee a few times when the film ended, and that is Krampus. I would have loved it if this movie was scary and you got to see a lot of Krampus, but what this movie was just a bunch of CGI little minions, like Krampus's sort of henchmen, going around killing these people in the house. But it's not scary. It's like funny. Now, I know this is supposed to be a comedy horror, but the way that they done it, I said, okay, the first half of the movie should be a comedy. And then the second half of the movie, when Krampus actually comes into it, should be the scary parts. They did a horrible job combining the funny elements and the scary elements. It didn't work, and the way that the film concludes, it just felt like it was just a stupid, pointless movie that really had nothing to it, and I didn't care about it. At number 3, we have one of the biggest disappointments of the year, and that's Fantastic Four. I absolutely hated this movie. This is another one that almost put me to sleep. It's so boring. This movie is just, it's not good, and it was a disappointment, and I don't want to see any more of these, so I hope they don't make any. This is the last film I saw before getting my kidney stones back in the beginning of the year, and I blamed this film. I said, this movie gave me my kidney stones because it was so bad, and it was such a hassle to watch. I hated it, and that is The Lazarus Effect. This movie was supposed to be scary. There's so many crappy horror movies this year. It's ridiculous. And it's just like, why did they even make this movie? What was the message? What was the message? What was the big plot to it that made me care? Nothing. It was just a bunch of crappy characters doing boring things. And it was just ridiculous, and I hated it. Alright guys, here we go. My least favorite film. I hated this movie. It was ridiculous. It was stupid. It was the worst movie of the year. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And that is The Gallows. This movie didn't really even know. It was just, okay. The worst thing a film can do is have the lead character be a jackass. And us, being the audience, were forced to go along with the story through this jackass's eyes. And the plot was silly, the way that they did it, and the way that the film ends, it was just ridiculous. And you're thinking, what the hell? I hope I never have to experience this movie again because it's garbage. So guys, there you have it. That's my top 10 least favorite films of 2015. Comment in the comment section, what's your top 10 least favorites? Or if you don't have a top 10, what are some of the worst films you saw this year? Let me know in the comment section. In the beginning of the video, I did say I do have my top 10 favorite films of the year up, so you can check that out. That's up on the channel now. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description. You can also follow me on Facebook. The link is also in the description of this video. Guys, that's it. It's been a great year, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next year. Over and out.